What's up, family? This is Gene Kennard, co-founder of Meta Marriage, bringing you a nugget to nibble on regarding relationships and marriage with the Word of God as a guide. And what I'm going to talk about is contained in the book of Genesis, Genesis 3, and it's from verses 1 through 6. It talks about how the devil got inside the serpent and how he spoke to Eve and was able to convince her to eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So what I'm going to talk about today is, where was Adam? That's my question. Where was Adam? Because there was a separation between Eve and Adam in order for the serpent to even be able to talk to Eve. So where was Adam when this conversation was going on, when the devil was speaking through the serpent and saying to her, like, hey, can you not eat the fruit of the trees? And she was like, yeah, we can eat the fruit of the trees. It's just the one tree we can't mess with. We can't even look at it. We can't even touch it or we'll die. And he's like, nah, you're not going to die. So I'm paraphrasing. Like I said, this is Genesis 3, verses 1 through 6. And he said, you're not going to die. It's just the fact that if you eat that fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it's just that, God knows that if you eat that fruit, you're going to be like him. He don't want you to be like him. That's all that is. So you're not going to die. Just think about that, though. And that's what got Eve to think. She started looking at the tree like, oh, man, that tree does look kind of nice. Ooh, that fruit does look good. Yeah, and I could be like God. I could be as wise as God. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So she takes the fruit. She eats it. Then she goes to her husband with the fruit. He eats it. And then all of a sudden, their eyes are open. They say, oh my God, we're naked. And they hear God coming through. And they said, later on in the chapter, it speaks about how God, the Spirit of the Lord, was walking through the garden in the cool of the evening. And they were hiding. So he was like, well, and he called out he said, Adam, where are you? And he said, hey, he was naked, so I was hiding. He was like, who told you he was naked? He was like, well, that serpent. Well, before that, he asked him, he said, did you eat that fruit from that tree that I told you not to eat from? He said, well, this woman that you gave me, she had me eat the fruit. So I'm going a little further than I really wanted to go. But the bottom line is, my question is, where was Adam? Because as the husband, we're supposed to protect our wives. We're supposed to cover them. We are their covering in the earth. We are their protection in the earth. And even though our wives may have their own relationships with the Lord, and then we have a relationship with the Lord, and we just have a combined relationship, we're still the covering for the wife. There shouldn't have been a separation. There shouldn't have been an opportunity for the serpent to be able to speak to her like that. Because I'm like, so I'm imagining the garden as being this massive place. Because God said, of every tree in the garden, thou mayest freely eat. Thou mayest freely eat. He said, except for one. It's almost like a tithe. Because he's saying that one tree is mine. Y'all can't eat that. Now, a lot of people might say, well, if God never wanted them to eat from that tree, why did he plant that tree? First of all, it was God's garden. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. So he could plant whatever he wants to plant. The idea, the bottom line is that he said, don't eat from that tree. And to me, that's the wrong question anyway, to say, well, why would he plant it there? Because there was an abundance there. There was a massive amount of trees with fruit. There was plenty. And he said, thou mayest freely eat. So he's saying you can eat as much as you can hold. But the devil was able to convince Eve that she was missing something. She was standing in the midst of abundance, but still focused on that one tree that God said not to eat. Like I said, it was like a tithe in the garden. That one tree belonged to him. Everything else was there. So, and that's another nugget that we can nibble on. We have to be careful of how we see things. We could be sitting in the midst of abundance, but then look at something that's a little different or something that we don't have and feel like we're still lacking. We fool ourselves like that a lot. But that separation between Eve and Adam provided the opportunity for the serpent to speak to her separately. Because I believe if Adam would have been right there with her, he would have been able to pull her away, or he would have been able to step in between the serpent and Eve, and he could have just cast them out. Could have told him, get out of here, beat it, scram, but because there was a separation, now he was able to get her to see something differently from how she was seeing before. So that's what my whole thing is like, because the Bible doesn't tell us exactly where Adam was positioned in the garden. They say he was in the garden. So I'm just thinking this garden must have been huge for them to be separated like that. Yeah, I mean, eventually, she caught up to him and was like, hey, I brought you something to eat. What husband is not going to say, oh, wifey brought me something to eat? Oh, cool. Well, ain't no husband around that's not going to eat that fruit or whatever she got in her hand. Unless you already know that it's something detrimental, that something is going to, cause some sort of injury or some sort of damage to you. But your wife is coming with some fruit or whatever, coming to you with a plate of food. Come on, man. We as men, as husbands, we're going to eat that. So it wasn't until after he ate it, he was like, oh my God, we ate the wrong, this is the fruit from that tree. So we got to make sure, I take that as we got to make sure that we cover our wives and we don't allow for outside voices, because that's what that represented. The devil speaking through the serpent, that was an outside voice that convinced her that even though she's in the midst of abundance, it convinced her to feel like she was lacking something, that there was still more that she could get, that there was still something that she didn't have in her possession that she could take a part of and be like God. And when in fact she was already God-like, because when she was created along with Adam, they were Adam. She didn't have the name Eve yet. Adam gave her that name afterwards, but he called them Adam. He called them both Adam. It's in the Bible. It's in the Word. They were called Adam. The two were one. They were Adam. So when he said, Adam, where are you? It's both of them. They were one. But Adam started calling her Eve after all of this happened. After they got banished from the garden, he gave her the name Eve. Prior to that, he was just calling her woman because she came out of man. So that's how that came about. But that's a lesson for me, even as a husband now. I'm saying I got to make sure that there's never a separation. Even if we're physically separated, there's no mental separation, spiritual separation, or emotional separation. We are still one. So if I'm outside the house and wifey's in the house, or vice versa, we're still connected. There's still no opportunities for any outside voices to persuade us to go against one another. We're connected. We're one, no matter what we do, no matter where we are. So that's the word that I want to bring to my husband, my dudes out there who want to be husbands. Make sure that you protect your lady. Make sure that there's no separation between you and your lady, you and your wife. And why, ladies, you want to be wives, don't let nobody come in between you and your husband. Even if y'all have an argument, this is for the fellas too. Even if y'all have an argument, don't invite outside voices in, because everybody doesn't have pure motives. Everybody doesn't want you to succeed in your marriage. Everybody doesn't want to see you together. That is a recipe for disaster when you start allowing other people access to your relationship, access to whatever y'all got going on. Okay, because the enemy is always looking for an opening. He saw that opening. He went in through the serpent and he convinced her to eat from that fruit, eat from that tree, that piece of fruit. And that caused a whole lot of problems. And they ended up being evicted from their home, basically, and they could not come back. So stay focused, people. Stay focused. Do not allow the enemy to be able to use somebody to come in between you and your marriage. Never let that happen. Peace and love. A little nugget to nibble on. I'm Gene Kennard, co-founder of Meta Marriage. Going to be bringing some more stuff like this to you. Something, an easily digestible morsel of information for you. All right? Using the word of God as the guide. Peace and love. Shalom.